This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. Joining me now, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. John, how are you after the Razorbacks get beat down by the Texas Longhorns? It could have been worse. The defense at least showed up.
That's what I would have said. Could have been worse. The defense showed up. Yes. It was kind of a classic Arkansas thing. You know, they stayed close enough to keep you watching, and they had moments where you thought this is hopeful, but then all hopes are dashed in the end. That's just the way it goes. And now, as I understand it, if they beat Louisiana Tech, they're going to a bowl game, and the coach gets bonus, and everybody's happy. So it all comes down to Arkansas versus Louisiana Tech, I guess, as to the fortunes of this season. We've lowered our expectations from the historic, legendary accomplishments of my childhood. That's just the way it is, and that's something a lifelong Arkansas resident has to come to terms with.
Well, you might have a good time down in Shreveport at that bowl game. So you let me know.
I will. I'm going. The only time I have during Razorback games is watching high def TV and eating cheese dip from the chair. That's it. That's the extent of.
Right.
That's my tailgate.
Let's begin with Arkansas's junior senator, Tom Cotton. Kind of right after the election of President Trump to another 4-year term, we see Cotton's name gets floated for Secretary of Defense, perhaps CIA director, something like that. He quickly takes his name out of the running, and shortly thereafter announces he's running for the number 3 slot in leadership in the U.S. Senate, and he wins that position. What do you make of the maneuvers there by Senator Cotton, and what do you expect from him being in this new role?
Sometime back, of course, I don't have good channels of communication with Senator Cotton. They're about as good as mine with Governor Sanders. But sometime back, a very close associate of his told me that, if you'll remember, early in the last cycle, he made inquiries around the country about raising money, perhaps to seek the Republican nomination, gave it up. The money was not there. And this very close associate said to me, he has made a decision to be a senator and to be that's the best move for him. And he won't be running for president, and he probably won't be taking any cabinet jobs because he wants to, it used to be, and it still can be, that we can have great influential United States senators, and that he had chosen that route. So I wasn't surprised. I think this reflects that information I got was true. It also tells me that while Cotton has a certain hostile style to his rhetoric, he gets very he can be very tough and hostile in his rhetoric, and he is, I call him extreme right. He is different from, say, Ted Cruz, who is apparently, just as an example, who is not widely or at all liked even by his colleagues. It turns out Cotton got votes to enter the leadership track, and if you're number 3 at his age, that could portend higher by 1 or 2 spots in his career. So, and I remember Mitch McConnell needing to find someone on the right to say that we've got to accept the Electoral College count, prevailed on him, if you'll recall, to write a piece which he allowed the Democrat Gazette to run only on election day. But he did it, and he did it for the leadership, and the leadership sought him out as someone who might be helpful by taking that position. All of that tells me that he's decided to aim to be a great and influential senator, and he's perhaps, he's on the track, if not on his way, seems to me.
I'll add another observation in there, too. I think it was probably a good career move for Senator Cotton in that if he did jump to the administration, he would have been at the whim of a president that's pretty trigger happy on firing people by text and making some of his appointees, bow in subservience at times to his positions. Not that he doesn't do that with senators as well, but there's at least a little bit more distance in that respect.
I think if you're in Trump's cabinet, you don't have job security. And if you're, say, was defense secretary and there was something, because I do believe that Cotton has principle. He has conservative, pro-military principles. If there was a difference, I don't think you're allowed to have a difference, at least as this second term portends itself. So yeah, I think that's also a factor. I think he's establishing himself and making wise career moves. That's what I think's going on with him, with Tom Cotton.
I wanted to ask you a question about the totality of some of the Trump appointments that we've seen so far, but I'm going to defer that to just single one of them out early on here. Let's talk about former Governor Mike Huckabee being named ambassador to Israel. I actually ran into Governor Huckabee in the grocery store about 2 days before this was announced. And he would have certainly known that. He did not tip his hand to me, but we had a lovely visit in the aisle near the eggs, by the way. So, but what do you make of that particular appointment? That's he's a guy that has obviously a lot of pro-Israel in his background. He's a preacher. He certainly has made a lot of trips to Israel and knows the territory well. I think some people have said that it's a terrible move. I think it's actually a pretty good move by Trump to name Huckabee to that post.
Well, if your position is we're all in for Israel, we don't criticize Israel, we are their ally. Anybody who's questioning some of their tactics against Hamas is pro-terrorist. If that's your position, and if you believe it, then Huckabee represents that well. Huckabee has been leading religious tours of the Holy Land for decades. I have no idea how many trips he's taken, but I do know that he loves the place, has close friends and associates in Israel, including with Mr. Netanyahu. It makes sense in that respect. It makes sense if you believe, as I don't, that the United States needs to have a strident religious extremist, in a way, as the ambassador to Israel. But my only problem with it is substantive about policy. It's not about him or his qualifications or his abilities. So yeah, if you're Trump and you mean what you say and you want American policy to be absolutely, unequivocally, stridently pro-Israel, then he's your guy. I also think you got to be careful. The job of diplomat is not always what he seems suited for. He can have undiplomatic moments. He can speak undiplomatically. He can speak with hyperbole. He certainly speaks with religious certitude, which I think is part of his appeal. I don't think of him as he's not a trained diplomat, and I don't think he's a consistently inclined diplomat. So that could be a factor as well. But if you're going to have Trump as president, then having Huckabee as your ambassador to Israel makes sense. And with everything being relative compared to RFK Jr. as Health and Human Services and Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, then Huckabee seems eminently appropriate. And maybe that's what's going on there. Maybe.
Let's talk about some of the other appointments that you just made reference to. You had Tulsi Gabbard also at National Intelligence. I think that is going to have some question marks around her. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who is from Fox News, although he does have some military in his background. What do you think Trump's game is with all of this? Is it to shock and awe, or is it to put people that he knows will be loyal to him and will blow up the system like he wants to do?
Yes and yes. Shock and awe. People that he knows will be loyal to him. Blow up the system, maybe not blow up the system, just own the libs. I think it's a big deal to him to own the liberals and to bug the heck out of, frighten, alarm, get rises out of Democrats. And so I think all that's what's going on. I think largely the signal is when Trump said this, "I'll be your retribution," to one of his rallies or to right wing or MAGA audiences. I think he's showing us that. I do hold out the prospect, as I just alluded to, that part of this might be tactical. That, okay, I might lose Gates, I might lose RFK. Makes the others seem more. I'll get most of them. I don't know if he thinks that way. I don't know if he's playing that way. But Gates, I think, even in this culture, I think he's going to be a hard confirm, you know. And so maybe that's part of what he's doing. If you stake out a position that's just outrageous, totally outrageous, then less outrageous becomes more acceptable. Could be all going on, but I do know I do know I think he's very, very pleased to be shocking the left and frustrating the left and scaring the left, because the left, the Democrats, as you know, indicted him. And so here we come. I'm gonna give you the worst imaginable from your perspective, nominees for cabinet positions, and see how you like that. Whether he's serious about getting all of them confirmed and would go to the mat, don't know. It's just that's the fascinating thing to watch.
I saw a good tweet the other day from someone who said it's already back, that 4 news cycles in one day feeling. So
for me, that's a thing where I try to write topically, and I've had during Trump's first term, I would write by 8 o'clock in the morning for the next day, and about as late as 4 o'clock, I was begging them to let me write something else or revise. I got to change this because, but yeah, the news cycle is now, it's not a daily news cycle. It's a half hour at most news cycle, because, and since we've been talking, there may have been somebody nominated for something that's going to shock and awe us. You never know. First thing I'm going to do when I get done with you is find out if that's the case.
Yes. All right. John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Always good to get your take. Thank you, sir.
See you next week. Bye-bye.